Hello, everybody, and welcome to the EOP Academic Success Network. In this video, I'm going to be interviewing Master Math Tutor Ray Fry. Ray Fry graduated in 2012 as a math and education major and went on to receive an MSED in education. Now, for the past 8 years, Ray has worked in Binghamton University as an adjunct lecturer of mathematics and with EOP as a tutor and summer instructor. So, hi, Ray.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. So, tell me about well, we all already went over the years that you've been working with EOP, but what subjects do you tutor for EOP?
Yeah, so I primarily tutor the math subjects. So most of the courses that students would be taking early on in their math careers at Binghamton. So things like Math 106, which is a pre-algebra course, Math 108, which is a pre-calculus course, calculus, our math and action course or Math 130, and then Math 147 and 48, which are your statistics courses.
All right. So those foundational courses, those courses that all students have to take at some point.
Exactly. And a lot of people kind of see most of those courses as review almost because of the fact that they might have taken a course like that in high school. But what you don't realize is although those are those foundational courses at a college level are very different than foundational courses at a high school level. So.
Yep. No, that's what I hear quite a bit from, teachers, students, everybody. So
Mhm.
tell me, why tutoring? Why did you want to become a tutor, especially for EOP?
I think there was a few real reasons. Like you had already mentioned in the introduction there, I come from an education background. So as an educator, I kind of like the idea of tutoring because it is such a helpful service for students. It's something that pretty much everybody should utilize in some way. So being an educator, I could bring that background into EOP and help out students, specifically the students that I was already teaching who might have needed those extra services. But also for me, it was the people that I saw working for EOP. When I first came to the university, I saw a lot of EOP people on campus and people that were either working or students as part of that program. And I wanted to work with that staff, right? I saw how much of a supportive environment that was, and it was just welcoming and inviting.
Very good. So to you, and now you mentioned, education, teaching, tutoring. What do you think is the purpose of tutoring, and why do you think it's beneficial to all students?
Yeah, so I think the purpose of tutoring, we kind of tend to confuse it a lot of times as it's homework help. Tutoring's not homework help. It's not what it's meant to be utilized for, right? My job is not to do your homework for you. In fact, I used to work in a tutorial center when I was an undergrad, not at Binghamton, and I had a student try to drop their homework off at the center and leave and come back up and pick it up later in the day. It's not what tutoring's about. Tutoring is meant to be a supplement to your course, right? Kind of think of it like your guide in a video game, right? That little helpful pop-up that kind of comes up to help guide you through something, right? So my role as a tutor is meant to see where you currently are, where you need to go, and help guide you and help you work towards that, right? It's not for me just to help you get the answers or just to help you pass that test. My job is to help you work through the content and begin to kind of sift through what is there.
No, exactly. And what you said there, I think is perfect. What and from what I'm hearing is a lot of students look at tutoring as those short-term goals.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get this assignment done. And
Mm-hmm.
what you're emphasizing is those long-term goals,
Exactly. Well,
Um,
and I think when I work with my students, like primarily I work in that calculus track, right? So when I see a 106 student, my goal is not just to get you through Math 106 when I'm helping to tutor you or help get you through test number one. Your goal is eventually calculus, right? So we're thinking about those skills you're going to need. How do we build that together as a tutor? How are we working to make sure your note taking is correct, because that will guide you through all the courses you need through that, right? A lot of the things we want to do are those long-term goals towards getting you towards a course or getting your degrees, or just in life having those skills you might need.
Yep. Oh, definitely agree. Now I wanna center it a little more. So we just talked about tutoring, but your
Mhm.
role at the EOP, or one of your roles, is a master math tutor.
Mhm.
Now, can you explain what the master math tutoring is and how it differentiates from EOP's private peer tutoring?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of differences there, right? Your peer tutor is usually going to be someone who is a peer, right? Another student or something like that. Your master tutor might be someone who is a professor on campus, a graduate student, someone who has a professional degree in that sense.
Mhm.
So you might view them in a different role than you would a peer, right? And the other difference there too is, I guess, when you come into my sessions, they are more open, right? They're walk-in sessions. There's usually a lot more students there, right? So in that sense, my sessions may feel a little more overwhelming when you walked into them. But you got to remember there, right? My job is still the same as that peer tutor, in the sense that I'm trying to help you to understand that material. And I also have the unique opportunity of, there are multiple students a lot of times in my session working on the same content. So I can help you work together with those peers to kind of connect you in different ways to give you another extra resource, right? But my job is kind of coming more from the upper, more professional graduate level of things and helping to kind of guide you in those long-term goals that way.
Good. I think that's really important. So first of all, you're showcasing that, master math tutoring has those higher level skills that you could help
Mm-hmm.
students with. But on the other hand, and this goes back to what, my belief learning is that learning is a social activity.
Mm-hmm.
So while it might be overwhelming at first, you're able to identify different students who could work together and help each other develop those skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important when it comes to, tutoring and just learning in general.
Exactly. And like I said, with that overwhelming feeling, sometimes, and I've had it happen when we were live and when we have been online, where a student sees another student already working with me and thinks that they have to hold back and can't come into that session. And what it really is you got to remember that anyone that attends my session is there for the same reason, and that is to get assistance or to get guidance in their courses. So you don't ever feel embarrassed if someone else is in that session, because most likely, if you're both there, you both have very similar questions, or you're there for the same reason, right? That's part of the reason I try and connect students together, because a lot of times they are there for the same exact idea.
Oh, definitely. So, um, say I was a student and I never attended one of your sessions. I was one of the ones who it was overwhelming. I think
Mhm,
that it would be overwhelming, but I wanted to. I wanted that assistance.
mhm.
What could I expect from that session, in addition to, working with other students?
Yeah.
Also, how would it benefit me, not just in the long term, but also in
Mhm.
that short term?
Yeah. So I think if you were one of those students that was, coming to my session for the first time, I can pick up on that because most likely I haven't seen your face before. And what we usually do first is I need to understand where you currently are in that course, right? And I need things like, well, what is the course, right? What are the things you've been trying so far, right? We talk a lot about, are those things working? Right? Are they not? Are you feeling like something is overwhelming because of that? Right? So we kind of figure out where you are first. And usually, right, I have a student that then always brings up, I have a test coming up or I have a homework assignment, right? So you say, okay, well, let's look at that assignment. Maybe there's some skills that we need to go back on and help out to get towards that. So I usually like to again start off with, where are you, right? What's going on there? Once we've identified, okay, these are some things I can work on, and things like that, we'll then go through and plan to say, okay, um, maybe we work together on this problem first, right? So maybe it's not a homework problem, but you're in math in action and we're doing a voting method question. Let's work together and talk about how that system works. Tell me what you already understand and what you're going to try first for that problem if this was a test question. So we work together on that whole idea. And then we slowly transition into where you're doing more and more of those questions on your own without my guidance, right? So we slowly work from this, we do it together, to I can do it by myself, right? And what that helps to bring up is your confidence, right? So if you now think when you're on a test and you sit down on a problem, you say, okay, I remember I worked with Ray, and when I first saw this question, we were going to try the board account method for voting. Okay, I remember there was an issue with that though. So, I got to be looking out for this issue. And you have that confidence as you go through that problem because you remember the session, and that kind of built up your confidence for that test question. So, really, we figure out where you are, right? Kind of slowly get to the point where you're working on those problems on your own, right? You might even try your homework question that you had some issues with before, right? And we really want to build that confidence in what we're doing.
No, I agree with everything, that you were saying in terms of not only meeting students where they are, but also, that scaffolding approach,
Mm-hmm.
modeling it for them, working with them, and then once they're
Mm-hmm.
ready, having them do it by themselves and on their
Exactly.
own. And most importantly, one of the most important things I think also is to make mistakes in those sessions.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
Hmm.
c-
That's one of the biggest things when it comes to mathematics is making mistakes, right? We all do it, right? I've done problems both, when I was in college and graduate level courses and things where I've made a mistake. And I've learned more from making that mistake and recognizing that that was a mistake that I could make again in the future and being able to realize when it's happening, right? I've learned more from that than anything else.
yep. Me too. Not with math per se, but with other things, once you make a mistake, you make sure not to, make that
Hmm.
again.
Exactly.
All right, I want to switch gears once again. So we started off with tutoring, we went to master math tutoring, but now I want to focus on math itself.
Hmm.
Um, what is it about math that interests you, and how has math helped you in your everyday life?
Yeah. So I think for me, what interested me in mathematics is I kind of grew up in a household where math was talked a lot about, right? It was that kind of logic of ideas, but when I say math was talked about, we didn't sit around the dinner table talking about fractions, right? That wasn't what I mean by that. We talked a lot about the things that were going on in the world and the way to work through those problems logically and to take all the data that you've been given and determine which pieces are the important ones that I can utilize for the future. So for me, math was always interesting, not because of the numbers and because of the black and white answers that sometimes come out of it. It was because I was building these skills where I could present myself with a puzzle or a challenge, and I knew that eventually I could work through that problem because of the mathematical reasoning skills I had. So it always attracted me, because of that reason. And I think that goes right into your question about how have I used math, in my daily life. It
Mhm.
really does come down to breaking things up into the pieces you can work on, right? Be it doing your taxes or buying a house or, what do I want to cook for dinner tonight, right? You don't want to go through and say, I want to make a whole cake. First, you need to build your grocery list. You need to break it into those small things and how they all interact together, right? What order am I going to put them in? How much time does it go in for? And then that's when you get to that final product. So, I'll be the first person to tell any of my students, your boss is probably not going to walk in and ask you to factor a polynomial or else you'll lose your job, right? But right, what your boss will do is present you with something that looks complicated and wants you to break it down, utilize the tools and resources your company or you yourself have in order to solve that issue. That's math.
Nope, I I agree, and I'm a latecomer to that. Um, I never was that quote unquote math person, but developing that mathematical sense, I'm not a high
Mhm.
level mathematician per se, but developing those skills, it allows me to see the world in a
Mhm.
different way. And this bleeds into my next question. It allows me to think about the world. Thinking
Mhm.
like a mathematician allows me to think about the world in a different way, providing different thinking models.
Mhm.
So I want you to expand on that. How do you think mathematical thinking, what you just described right
Mhm.
there, is different from, let's say, other discipline specific thinking, like, the social sciences or the humanities or things like that?
Yeah. So, and I'm kind of making some generalizations about some of those other ones, but I think of, things like art and English where you're creating things, or social studies where you're looking at past events and bringing things together. Math has elements of those, but for most of the students in the courses that they'll be taking, mathematical thinking is more of a struggle. You're kind of working through a puzzle or a mystery, right? Something's already been there where there's some clues or there's some goal in mind that you have to work through. And part of it is that struggle to kind of determine what's going on and how do I get where I need to go, right? It kind of involves all those other skills you have from the other humanities and sticks them all together in a kind of interesting way, right? There's a quote who I cannot remember who the actual author of is, but it's math is not a journey down a clear path, right? It's a kind of journey through a jungle where you have to kind of break everything down and you're chopping through, right? You're kind of building through this unknown, right? So for me, math really is a struggle, right? So when you're thinking about it, be prepared to struggle, and that is perfectly okay. All of us do, right? I've even told students I've failed math tests before, right? Because I was struggling with the content, but I still ended up becoming a math professor, right? I went through that struggle, and that struggle is part of learning and part of mathematics. So, really, mathematics, you have to be prepared to struggle. You have to prepare to feel uncomfortable and to feel like you might not know where you're going, but you're taking all these things that you've gathered, the previous things that you've done, and helping to kind of push your way through that jungle, that unknown, right? Chopping through it. So again, compared to like English, where you're kind of writing a paper and you're creating something, right? Or social studies, where you're looking at those historical documents, maybe connecting pieces. Math is kind of that journey from where do I start, what do I have, and where am I going?
Oh, very good. And I want to stick on that struggle thing because
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really really important. I think that not just math, but I think all learning is a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
If I go and exercise in the gym, let's say, I'm not going to pick up the smallest weight, lift it
Mm-hmm.
once, and then drop it and be like, all right, I'm going to get really strong from this. I have to
Mm-hmm.
struggle. I have to tear the muscles. I have to sweat,
Exactly.
things like that. Uh, But what would you tell somebody who, you know, feels they have, let's say, struggled enough, especially with math? Um, a-
Mm-hmm.
and this was me back in high school. I didn't just fail a math test, I basically failed math courses.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to college, I'm like, how can I just get out? Like, I took the basic courses I could get and
Mm-hmm.
squeaked by and got by. But my mentality, all the way from, I would say, elementary school, all the way up until a couple of years ago, was I'm not a math person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to delve in that struggle. What would you tell somebody who is coming into your tutoring session? Um, what would you tell them to help them, um, develop those skills? I mean, they may not develop that passion for
Mm-hmm.
math, but developing the appreciation, let's say, for
Yeah.
math.
And I think you kind of hit it on the head there with the I'm not just a math person, and not to be like upfront and really real with people here for a minute, but that's a wrong statement to have, right? That I'm not a math person. That's a very, like, it demeans on you, right? It puts you down. This is not something that I can do, right? First thing I'd say, that's not true. It's not that you're not a math person, right? We all are human beings. We're designed to think about things, right? Which is what mathematics is. So yes, you are a math person. Math is what builds up your brain. It helps you to stand up and all of that stuff. It's part of your daily life, from your cell phone to the chair you sit in. All of that is possible because of math. So you are a math person. You may not feel like a math person though, because of that struggle and feeling like you're just kind of being pulled through the mud when it comes to all that stuff. So the first thing is we would have to break that idea that I'm not a math person, right? It's just I'm not there yet, or I'm not where I want to be yet, right? Have that growth mindset that I will be there eventually where I can do the math that I want to do. The thing you then want to do is it goes back to things like tutoring, right? It may not be that you're not a math person, right? It may not be because of that. It may be because you were missing a skill that was maybe reading through a textbook, right? Maybe that is the actual root of the issue, is that you don't know how to read a math textbook, because they are very different than an English textbook or a science textbook, right? It might be that your issue is that your note taking really is the thing, right? That your notes are all over the place. So your brain is having to sort and organize those notes every time instead of being able to just focus on the math part of it, right? So really our first thing is, again, to break down that idea that no, you are a math person, right? And then where are those struggles actually coming from, right? What is the actual root of the issue there? And I think that's, again, what tutoring is for, and what my sessions are really for, is I help you to kind of say, okay, where is my real struggle here, and how can I build up my confidence so that maybe by the end of a few sessions, I'm not saying I'm a math person and I love math and I think math is the best thing ever, but I can do this, right? I can do math, right? I'm not a math person, maybe, right? Maybe I still feel that way, but I can do this and I can achieve it, right? And it really comes down, identify what the real root of the problem is, right? Don't just throw up your hands and say, I'm not a math person, right? Because you can do it.
Oh, I definitely agree with everything that you just said. So we're we're winding down, and I want to ask you, is there anything else that you want to add? Is there anything else you want to say to, the EOP students, or staff, or whoever else might be watching this video?
Yeah. So I think, it ultimately comes back to what we talked about in the very beginning of finding tutoring, right? So you're taking a math course, or maybe not, right? Maybe you're trying to do some sort of journey on yourself, but you're taking a math course, let's say, and you've identified that you're struggling, or maybe you're starting to feel like something is uncomfortable and you want some guidance. Find that tutoring, right? So for me, tutoring comes down to early and often, right? Don't wait until 2 days before your exam to come tell me that, hey, I need a little assistance, because I can help you, but I'm not a miracle worker. I can't do it in a couple of days or an hour, right? So come to me early, right? Even if you're like, I feel really confident right now and I just need someone to be nearby to make sure I'm still doing my problems, come sit with me, right? Be there early, right? Don't wait until it becomes an issue, and come often, right? So be consistent with what you're doing, right? If I see you once a month, that's not going to do as much as me seeing you once a week, right? I'm not saying come every day, because we all need a break from math. So daily math, where you're like in there working for 3 hours every single time, is probably not the best idea. You still want to be working on your problems daily, but right, come often, right? Make a plan to come consistently, just like you were saying with a workout, right? I don't work out every so often and expect to gain abs and muscles, right? I have a weekly plan where every Tuesday and Thursday at this time I go in and I work on my upper body, let's say, right? Same with math, right? Work that mathematical muscle and say every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 o'clock for 30 minutes, I'm going to go work on my math. and make sure that I'm building those skills. So come early, come often.
Awesome. Ray, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and doing this interview. And I want to
Mhm.
thank everybody out there who is watching. This has been another installment of EOP Academic Success Network. Ray will be working for the spring 2021 semester. So please come, to his Master Math Tutor walk-in hours. And I hope to see you there.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everybody.